You were standing under an open sky thousands of years ago. There is no air conditioning, no cold drink, and nowhere to escape the afternoon heat. Your skin is wet with sweat, which feels like a weakness because every drop is water you cannot replace easily. But that sweat is actually one of the reasons you are still alive. So how did ancient humans survive extreme heat? The answer is not that they were simply tougher than we are. Their bodies could still overheat. They could still dehydrate. They could still die. What they had was something more useful than toughness, a survival system built from biology, behavior, water, and knowledge. Start with the body, because the human body is strangely well designed for getting rid of heat. Compared with other primates, humans have an unusually high density of eccrine sweat glands spread across the skin. These glands release water onto the surface of the body. When that water evaporates, it carries heat away. That sounds simple. It is not. It is one of the most powerful cooling systems in the animal world. Most mammals rely heavily on fur, panting, or limited sweating. Humans went in another direction. We lost much of the thick body hair that covered our ancestors, and we became extremely good at sweating. In hot, dry air, that combination gives exposed skin a huge advantage. Heat can move from the body into evaporating water before the core temperature rises too far. But there is a catch. Sweat only works if it evaporates, and every drop that evaporates is a drop of water leaving your body. Cooling yourself creates the next problem. Now you have to replace the water. This is where the story stops being about biology and becomes a story about behavior. Ancient humans did not need to defeat the hottest part of the day, they could avoid it. Shade changes how much solar radiation reaches the body. A rock overhang, a tree, a cave entrance, or any shelter from direct sunlight could reduce the heat load before sweating had to do the rest. Movement could be shifted toward cooler hours. Rest could happen when the sun was punishing. The smartest way to survive heat is often not to tolerate more of it. It is to absorb less of it. And the human body gets better at the job with repeated exposure. Modern heat acclimation experiments show that after days of regular heat exposure, people can begin sweating more effectively, while conserving more salt in that sweat. Heart strain can fall. Core temperature during the same work can be lower. Ancient people did not know the word acclimation. Their bodies did not need the word. They just needed repeated exposure. But none of that makes water optional. In fact, our powerful sweating system makes water more important. And archaeology gives us a clue about just how important. Today, much of the Arabian Peninsula looks like a wall of heat and desert. It is tempting to imagine early humans crossing it through pure endurance, but that is not what the evidence shows. At Wusta in what is now Saudi Arabia, researchers found a Homo sapiens fingerbone dating to roughly 85,000 years ago. The surrounding evidence shows that these humans were living there during a much wetter phase, when stronger rainfall had transformed parts of Arabia into grasslands with fresh water. Other archaeological sites across northern Arabia show a similar pattern again and again. Human occupation appears alongside ancient lakes and wetter climatic windows. Think about what that means. Our ancestors did not always survive extreme heat by standing in the driest place and enduring it. Sometimes the greatest survival technology was knowing where the water would be, and when it disappeared, moving. That sounds obvious until you remember what navigation meant without a map. A spring could be the difference between life and death. A seasonal pool had to be remembered months later. A route between water sources had to be taught. People had to know which valleys held shade, which plants contained moisture, which landscape signs meant water was nearby, and how far a person could travel before turning back became impossible. One person can discover a water source. A culture can remember it for generations. And that may be the most important part of the entire story. Humans are not just animals with sweat glands. We are animals that share information. A child does not need to personally discover every dangerous hour of the day, every usable shelter, or every reliable source of water. Someone older can show them. Knowledge turns one person's survival into another person's starting point. That changes the equation completely. A biological adaptation takes generations to spread. A useful behavior can spread in an afternoon. Find shade, travel earlier, rest longer, carry water, remember the spring, follow the season. None of those actions looks as dramatic as inventing a sword or building a city. But together they allowed human beings to live in places where a mistake could become fatal very quickly. And there is another detail people often miss. Extreme heat is not one single problem. Dry heat and humid heat are different. In dry air, sweat can evaporate rapidly. In humid air, the atmosphere is already carrying more water vapor, so evaporation becomes harder. That means the same temperature can place very different demands on the body depending on humidity, sunlight, wind, workload, and access to water. Ancient survival knowledge had to be local. There was no universal trick. The solution that worked beside a dry savanna might fail on a humid coast. The safest travel time in one season might be dangerous in another. Survival meant reading an environment closely enough to know which rule applied today. So how did ancient humans survive extreme heat? Not because heat did not hurt them, not because their bodies were somehow immune to dehydration, and not because they possessed one lost secret that modern humans have forgotten. They survived because several systems worked together. Evolution gave them skin capable of extraordinary evaporative cooling. Repeated exposure allowed their bodies to acclimatize. Behavior helped them avoid unnecessary heat. Water shaped where they could travel and when they could remain. And culture allowed one generation to hand the solution to the next. Remove any one of those pieces and the margin for error becomes smaller. Combine them, and an animal born in Africa can eventually expand across an astonishing range of climates. The air conditioner is new, the refrigerator is new, the weather forecast is new, but the first line of defense is ancient. The next time you step outside on a brutally hot day and sweat appears across your skin, it may feel like your body is failing to handle the heat. It is doing the opposite. That water on your skin is part of a cooling system shaped across human evolution. The instinct to look for shade is older than any building. The need to stay near water helped decide where people moved, rested, and lived. And the knowledge that keeps a person alive in heat has been passed from human to human for longer than anyone could write it down. Ancient humans did not conquer extreme heat. They learned to work around it, and your body is still carrying part of that lesson.